Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly livestock market update. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us as always to talk all things markets, University of Missouri, Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
I think the new Facebook is disliking everything we're trying to do technologically today. So hopefully this stays and we stay steady through the course of our conversation this afternoon.
Well, hopefully we call it something other than Facebook today, right?
Maybe that's the problem. I don't know what's going on. Is it Meta? Is that what I can't keep up with it. Anyway, all right. So we don't have a ton of stuff to get into today. It's a pretty quiet week for us. So let's recap what happened this week in the markets.
You know, the cattle side this week, by and large, we got positive news with cash cattle up $2 this week. Those feeder cattle auctions were steady to $3 higher as we went through the week. On the future side, the December live cattle futures contract closed up nearly $1, while the November feeder cattle futures contract was down slightly, down 20 cents. I think that was due in large part to what was a nearly 31-cent increase in that December corn futures contract. We got higher choice box beef prices this week, which has been a while since we could say that. Up about $3.75 this week, really led by what was stronger rib prices. On the hog side this week, cash barrel and gilts continued downward movement, down $3.20. We did get some lift in the December lean hog futures contract. It was up $2.50 on the week. The pork cutout value was lower this week, down nearly $4.10 on what was some fairly weaker bellies again this week.
It really has been several weeks in a row of sliding cash hog prices. We've talked a little bit about this. How much are we concerned with where these go toward the end of the year? And are we still maybe thankful that they're higher than where we thought they may have been?
So yes is the short answer of, I think coming out of hogs and pigs last quarter, there's a lot of positives as we had fewer numbers than many would have expected going in. That certainly pushed markets higher for a while. We've been coming back down off of that. We're kind of getting prices back to where we were pre the hogs and pigs report. I still feel like we have some reason to be optimistic, although markets certainly haven't seen much of that recently. To me, this all probably hinges on just how strong domestic and international demand for pork is as we move here late in 2021.
That's something we definitely will be keeping our eyes on through the next quarter and into the start of next year. And we'll get a glimpse of that next week too, as we look at monthly trade data and when that comes down.
That's right. Hopefully we'll get some good news with some higher pork exports out of the United States, but we'll wait and see till we get next week's report.
We definitely want to see something like that. All right, let's talk weekly slaughter as we take a look at those numbers. Some increases and some decreases as well.
That's right. So some bigger cattle numbers this week. USDA for the week ending October 30th is estimating 668,000 head of cattle to be slaughtered. That's 7,000 more than where we were a week ago and 28,000 more than where we were a year ago. While on the hog side of the equation, a run of 2.551 million head of hogs. That's down 47,000 head from last week and 143,000 head less than where we were a year ago.
All right. The big report this week, the only report this week, restaurant performance index. As we take a look at those numbers, not necessarily a great performance for September.
Yeah, if we look at the September numbers, that now makes 3 consecutive months of declining overall restaurant performance index. If we break apart a little bit of what we have here, the current situation index was lower by a half a point from September to August, despite what was higher same-store sales, higher customer traffic. And what pulled that current situation portion of the index down was labor. Not surprising, what was nearly a 2-point decline in the labor portion of the overall index from August to September. I know a lot of these restaurants are certainly struggling with adequate labor at this point. I guess if we look at the expectation side of that index, It was down a little more than 2 points. Again, I think just overall concern about where we head as we finish 2021 and head into early 2022.
How much are the overall, or is the overall broader economy maybe coming into concerns about spending going into the holiday season? You hear a lot of talks about inflation. And does that, when we look at these consumer reports or these consumer aspects, how much is that weighing in on what we're seeing and what's happening?
Yeah, so I think it is. And I think we all struggle with where do we go forward, right? So supply chain stretched, labor shortage, not enough available labor for almost any industry you want to talk about. I think all that's added a lot of uncertainty. I sometimes go, well, you look at the stock market, it's at the other end of the spectrum, trying to hit, record levels. So there's a lot of different information being fed in, trying to figure out where we're actually at in terms of overall economic growth. Inflation certainly is a part of that picture, and how much of it's related to just stretched supply chains versus long-term inflation we might have to deal with. I think the jury's still a little out in terms of which issue is driving some of that inflation that we see right now. But I guess a little more uncertainty than we've seen for a while after we started 2021 with really what was some pretty strong growth for a number of months.
Scott, before I let you go this afternoon, let's talk a little drought. How are things looking as we look in parts of cattle country that we've been talking so much about? Are we starting to see improvement? Is this is some of the places that have gotten rain, is it enough at this point? And how does that impact what's going to happen with cattle as we look ahead to cattle on feed numbers continuing to come out the rest of the year?
Yes. So you ask a lot of really good questions here. Number one, to the drought itself, if we look at pasture and range conditions for the week ending October 24th, the most current data we have, you can find in California that 70% is in the very poor and poor condition categories out of that latest report. I can go to North Dakota and find 73%, South Dakota sitting there at 78%. So I don't think we've really seen much improvement in those states that have been dealing with drought for a number of months now, frankly. Yet you can go to a Missouri and find a situation where 87% of it's fair to good. And so there's a mixed bag in terms of what's happening. I say all that going, I think we've continued to move calves out of those drought areas maybe quicker than normal. When you look at the percentage of placements for the first 9 months of this year relative to the January 1 available cattle inventory to be placed, we've been placing a large percentage of that, 4 or 5 percentage points above the longer term average, which tells me we've been pulling those calves in a little sooner. I have a hunch that's from some of the drought areas is where that's happening. From a price perspective, despite, again, those that are living in the drought areas have a very difficult situation, in aggregate, I think we find ourselves headed towards lighter placements as we move ahead, and more positive news for cattle prices as we move ahead. So it's a very interesting time in that I don't think we can continue to see placements running like they have been, and our day of lighter placements are certainly coming up here over the next several months.
Scott, always great to see you as we look ahead to next week. We mentioned monthly trade data. What else are we going to talk about?
We're also going to get a jobs report next Friday, which will be another measure of just what's happening on the domestic demand front.
Well, we will talk to you then. Our first snowfall, or forecast for snowfall, is in the coming week. So I will keep you posted to see how the Mid-South handles freezing temperatures. And
very good. Well, I hope you can avoid that snow.
I have two little guys who probably would beg to differ. So we will see what happens. All right. Summer Weekly Livestock Market Update delivered to your email box every Saturday morning. Go to brownfieldagnews.com. You can submit questions. You can subscribe. You can also leave us a comment. All of those are welcomed. And for all of the great Brownfield podcasts, go to brownfieldagnews.com/podcast. Have a great weekend. I'm Megan Grebner for Brownfield.